Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Wilson, and I am the Reference and Adult Services Librarian for the Kershaw County Library. And I want to welcome you to the first of three um, classes in a row. These are called the Family Friday series. And these are going to cover our three databases that we have for looking up your family history. And these genealogy databases are available to anybody with a Kershaw County Library card. And when you sign on for the first time from home, it's going to ask you to put in your library card number before you can go into your actual database. There is one of these that is not going to be available from home, but we'll cover that one at the very end. So today's class is about uncovering roots, the ProQuest African American Heritage Database. And we're going to talk about a couple of things. So before we get really started, when you're working with the ProQuest African American Heritage Database, there are some special things that you have available to you for use on that database. And so I'm going to place some notes on the Kershaw County Library website for you to be able to download. This webinar or class will be placed on the Kershaw County Library YouTube page as well. And after this class, if you have any questions, you can either call the library and ask for me, or you can email me at christyb@kershawcountylibrary.org. So in just a minute, we're going to jump right into this. But I want to tell you a little bit about African American heritage before we do that. This particular database is designed specifically to locate members of your family that were from African American heritage. And these items are not going to be available from all areas. It's only areas that actually kept these records. In addition to that, there's some extra pieces as well on here, some special pieces that you can use to help you in your search. So if we're ready to get started, give me just a second here and I'll see if I can't bring up what I need to bring up. And there we are. This is the library's website. Across the top, you see a list of things that you can do. You can browse, do research and learning, look at our programs and services and some other things. But what I'm going to do to get to this database is I'm going to rest on research and learning, and then I'm going to go down to e-resources. When I click on e-resources, there's a very long list that's going to show up. At the very top of that list, you will see a segment there that says subject areas available. If you click on the one that says genealogy and family history, it's going to immediately take you to the bottom of the list. And these are the three that we have. We have Ancestry Library Edition, Heritage Quest, and ProQuest African American Heritage. So I'm actually going to click on this blue link here. You can also sometimes click on the picture, but we're going to click on the blue link this morning, and it's going to open up and it's going to give us the page as we would see it when we entered African American heritage. Across the top, you'll see the name is there. And then there's a bunch of little buttons. One says home, that's the opening page. Search will allow you to search the collections. Browse will let you go into the Afrogenius community and some other things. Publications will let you explore the Black Genesis book. And community will let you look at the consult, reference, and how-tos. And you'll notice that each one of those four things are also listed beneath there. So you can either click one of the buttons or you can click the title of the collection. Over to the right, you'll see a little button that says Search History. As you go through searching today, you're going to discover that everything that you search on is kept under Search History. So if you need to go back and repeat that search, then you have a better chance of finding the information that you found previously. So you can always go back and take a look at what you've been in today. Next door to that, we have My Notebook. If you want to save certain things, you can put them in the My Notebook area, and at the end of your day for searching, you can open the My Notebook and you have up to 500 spaces to put something in there. And those 500, that list of 500 will show up for you, and then you can choose what you want to do with each one of those. Now, I tried the help this morning and apparently it's not working. So you may not be able to get to use the help, but if you have any questions, please feel free to call here at the library or contact me with the email address I gave you earlier. So down the left-hand column, you have something that says news and events, and it says learn about recent editions, upcoming events, and more. So all of the things that you can get through African American Heritage, they're going to give you news about that. And they're also going to give you some things that you can work on your own from home. Now, beneath that, we have something that says get started. And this is a very, very simple place to start at, and it's going to let you put in the basic information. Normally, I would tell you to narrow everything down to put the most amount of information in there that you can. At this point in time, it's not going to let us do that. So on here, we're going to actually search for a young man named Isaac Miller. Now, Isaac's father's name was Robert, and he used to live in Pennsylvania. So when we go through here, those are pieces of information that you're going to need to know. So under last name, I'm going to type in Miller. And you'll notice I am not using capital letters because it's not necessary. The searches are not case sensitive. They do not require capitals and lower cases. You can just type everything in lowercase. Now underneath that, it says last name spelling and it says exact. Now, what it's saying by this is it's telling you if you want it exactly as you typed it in, that's how it's going to search. But if you're not sure about the spelling, there's another option. If I click on this little down arrow, it says something called Soundex. And Soundex was created for the U.S. federal censuses. And it is designed to use a letter number combination that will get not only the name as you spell it, but any close by related names as well. So it will give you a chance to find a bad spelling or a change in the spelling of the name of the family. But for purposes of this morning, we're going to leave that at exact. So under first name, we're going to do something else as well. When you're not, again, when you're not for certain about the spelling of a name, or you're not for sure if it was Isaac or Isaiah, you can actually shorten a word. That's called truncation. And as long as you know the first three letters of the name, you can put in an asterisk or the little star that's above your number 8 on your keyboard, and it will actually form what's called a wildcard. And that wildcard of the asterisk will tell the search engine that it's looking for anything that starts out ISA. So I'm going to put in ISA and then that little asterisk. And for the state, at this point in time, we're going to leave it at all just because, and we're not going to put any date range in there. And so now we're going to go down and we're going to click search. And this, by the way, is searching the collections. So when you click on search, it's going to come back and it's going to return a result from all of the collections. Now, the results that are on here, if there's not something in a collection, it will tell you that there is 0 from that collection, but all of the collections will be listed. So among the collections that are on African American Heritage, you have the census information, you have draft registrations, you have Freemans Bank register information, you have marriage information for only specific states, you have military service information. Again, you have cohabitation, different from marriage because it's not with a legal marriage document. That one is also limited to certain states. And then the registers are something a little bit different. In some states, early on, they requested or demanded that anybody of African American descent needed to come to a specific location in an area, and they would basically take a census or create a list or a register of those people so that they knew who they were. So these are all the different places that you can find. And if you're not certain about any of the collections, you see the little I in the circle. If you click on that, it will tell you again about what that collection does. So we're going to start off with the census records. So we know that Isaiah, father's name Robert, should be somewhere on a census. So if you look down here to the 1900 census, it says that there are 83 names closely matching this. And over here, it will say expand by state. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to let me choose the state that we know where Robert was from, which is Pennsylvania. So when I click on Pennsylvania over here, it's going to give me the list of 4 people from Pennsylvania. In this case, our person is Isaac H. Miller, born in Delaware, Pennsylvania. And at this point in time, he's age 36. So if I click on his last name over here, it's going to come up with a response about who this gentleman is from that time period. Now, the census pages, when they come up, they're sometimes a little blurry. Sometimes the handwriting isn't really well represented. Sometimes there are issues with the pages. And so there are going to be a couple of things that you can do. When the page comes up, you will notice that it's exactly as it was in the book when they took it. And these were all done by hand. So you will also notice that the handwriting might not be the easiest thing to read. So sometimes down at the bottom, you will find a transcription of what is on that information, or what information is on that particular image. In this case, there is not a transcription. You will notice that right below his information at the top, you see this little button that says add to my notebook. Now, I'm not going to add it yet because there's a reason. You'll notice that below that, there's some boxes. One says print, one says download, one says positive, the other says negative. If you can't read the positive, which is the black print on white paper, if you flip over to the negative, which will be white words on black paper, it might be easier for you to read. And then the zoom feature lets you bring this up as there's 3 different levels. There's 100%, 200%, and 400%. And it will actually let it be big enough for you to be able to read certain information off of there. And then below that, it says Subpage A and Subpage B. Well, I happen to know that Mr. Miller is not on Subpage A. So I'm going to click on Subpage B, and it's going to change in just a minute. And when it does, then we'll scroll down it to see if we can find Mr. Miller. While that's happening, if you notice at the very top on the right-hand side, it says back to search results. So when you're finished with this, you can go back to those search results very quickly. All right, so Subpage B has shown up, and I'm going to go slowly down this page. And you'll notice this was the 12th census of the United States. This is from Chester City in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. And this was done in June of 1900. Now, modern day census information is done every April, but sometimes things happen like pandemics, and it makes a change in how things are done. So as I scroll down through here, I'm going to find Mr. Miller and his family. And he is right here. And in his household, he has himself, his wife, Mary, a daughter named Mabel, a brother-in-law named Charles, and a niece named Lily. A couple of other pieces of information, you can find out that he is married and male. You can see his birth date, his age. You can also see where he was born and where both of his parents were born. And if I move across here ever so slowly, without moving things too far out of whack, which I just did, here we go. If I move across there, you will see that Mr. Miller worked as a day laborer and his wife was a housekeeper. So you get a little bit of information. Now, one of the things you'll discover with the census information is every time that they do a census, they change the questions that they ask. So some of this information is going to be on some, and some of it is not going to be on there. And sometimes there's going to be additional information. That's just for you to know. All right, so I'm going to move up here to the top. And you will notice again, you can see the back to search results over here. And down here a little ways over, you're going to see the add to my notebook. I'm going to put a check mark there. And then I'm going to go back to search results. And I'm actually going to go, let me see if I can do, I'll just go backwards this way, which is the way I normally do it anyway. And we're back to the census, and here's the full list. So we know that Mr. Miller got married. We know about when he was born, and we've got a lot of information from that census that we can use. But is it possible that he may have been registered for drafts? So we're going to, again, click on draft registrations. And we are going to choose Pennsylvania again. And look, here he is. Isaac Hibbert, born August 28th, 1879. So I'm going to click on his last name, and there is the actual document image. So remember, I told you there were different levels of zoom. I'm going to actually bring this up to the 400 level so that I could read it a little bit better. On this registration card, it says Isaac Hibbert Miller and his birth date and how old he was when he signed up for this draft, where he worked, and also it gives a next of kin named Rebecca. Now we know his wife's name is Mary, so I'm going to make an assumption that Rebecca may have been his mother, because I can't really read it well enough to tell. So if I wanted to save this, again, I can add it to my notebook. And this time it says that there's a transcription available below the image. Now with transcriptions, as I said earlier, they don't always tell you everything. And so you'll see on here, it doesn't really tell you any more information than we already basically had. So let me go up to the top here. I'm going to go back to those search results. And this time I'm going to try to go to main search. Nope, don't want to do that. Let me back up. And we'll just back our way through these pages. And let me tell you a couple of bits of information about the Freedmen's Bank. Now, the Freedmen's Bank was designed for both slaves and freedmen who were able to have African American ancestors, and they would be able to then sign up and save money at this Freedmen's Bank. And there were a number of them dotted across the areas where most of the slaves and freedmen lived. If they did indeed have an account, it does hold a lot of information. And so we're going to give a check and see if Mr. Miller had an account with the Freedmen's Bank. And if I go down through here, I do not see our Isaac Miller. And since he was born in 1879, I know none of these are him because there is none born in, oh, sorry, that's the application year. But that will answer that question anyway, because none of these are after 1879. So we do know that he does not have an account. If he did have an account, the information that is on here is very basic. I'm just going to click into one of these so that you can see this. It gives when they started their account, where they were born, where their residence is, how old they are, their occupation, who they work for, any children, who their father and mother are, and their brothers and sisters. So it's rather an interesting set of information that you can get from the Freemans Bank records. I'm going to go back here. Before we go on to marriage, let me go back for a minute to the census, because there's this little bit of information that I didn't tell you. When it comes to searching for African American ancestors, while the U.S. Census was begun in 1790, the actual African American designation does not appear until 1860. So these will be in African American Heritage, these will be from the 1860 to the 1930 census information. All right, let's take a look at marriage now. Now with marriage, you will see that in this case, it only has one state that includes marriage records, and that's North Carolina. And since there were only 4, we're going to go on ahead and click on the state, and we'll see if Mr. Miller is here. And it does not appear that he was. So apparently he did not marry in any state that kept those type of records. Just so that you can see what this looks like, I'm going to click on this first one, and it's going to come up and it's going to show you what the marriage record looked like. This is a register of marriage, and it basically gives the date, the name and location of residence for each couple, and who was the person that married them. A lot of information there as well, except that not for our Isaac Miller. Let me back up here. All right, service records. Now, these are different from draft registrations, because draft registrations mean that the gentleman actually signed up for a draft, but may or may not have served. So I'm going to come down here and we're going to click on service, and we'll see if Isaac has any military service. Now, in this case, there are 3 records, one from Tennessee, one from Kentucky, and one that says not recorded. Now, not recorded just means there's not any place listing, any place of residence listing on it, or place of service listed on it. So we're going to start with not recorded. I'm going to give that a click, and we're going to open that one up. And this one doesn't look like our Isaac, and it doesn't give enough information on here for us to know if it was or was not. It doesn't even give his birth date. It only gives his information by name and that sort of thing. So let's go back. And one more. We're going to look at Kentucky. And this gentleman we know did not, because this was done in 1864. And Tennessee, the same thing, done in 1864. So those were not going to be good records for our person that we're looking for. Now, with cohabitation, this one is for this area only done in North Carolina. So I'm going to just open this up. I can almost guarantee you he's not going to be in there. And he's not, because this was done in 1866, and Isaac wasn't born until after that. So let's take one more step back. And the registers. With the registers, they were done in Louisiana, but not necessarily in other areas. So I'm going to click on Louisiana, and it's going to come up with its record there. And again, because this was done in 1859, it's not our Isaac, but I do want to open this one up so you can see what it looks like. So when I open this up, it's going to show you what the registry looked like. And it's basically the name of the person, how old they were, where they were located, and some additional information to the side. And so that you can see this, this is the type of writing I'm talking about. It's sometimes very hard to decipher what these words are. So that if you need to get a better vision of it, if you click on negative here at the top, it's going to go back and it's going to resubmit it. And then you're going to be able to see it in white on black. And the reason that this works better is because sometimes it clears up some of the tiny little lines. This doesn't make it much better for this one, but it can. All right, so we have gone through here and we have looked at all the different options that are available to us for African American heritage. So what we're going to do is, let me go over one more thing. You see at the top it says image, registers, and then it has a roll number and a page number. These are not necessarily the official rolls and pages that you would use if you used the actual microfilm. So those are not necessarily valid information for ordering the microfilm of these things. And I wouldn't list that on there as your location for finding it. I would list your location for finding it as African American heritage. All right, let me go back up here. And remember, we talked about browse. If I click on browse, it's going, I was wrong. This is not going to, oh yes, Afrogenius is to the side. But browse collections will actually let you go through in a different way. It's not usually something most people use, but it is available to you. Then over here we have Afrogenius. And what Afrogenius does is it comes up and it shows you the information from Afrogenius, which is a excuse me, a social media site that's run by volunteers, and it actually provides access to forums, chats, mailing lists, and other things, as well as giving expert advice. If you go onto one of the chats, it will help you with that. So it gives you the recent posts that have been out there. It will look for surnames and any information they have on a surname. It tells you about family reunions that may be happening. It gives the marriage data and the death data so that you can find that information as well. And finally, there's a beginner's guide on here, and it will help you learn how to basically begin your search. So that is one of the things that's available on here. Also under browse, you'll see the thing here that says Black Genesis. If I click on that, it's going to come up and it's going to tell you that this is a special online edition of Black Genesis that was written by a couple of very fine people, which right now I can't remember. I'll tell you what, let me go back to that home real quick and let me click it here. I'm having a fun time today. All right, I'll read it from here. It says subtitled A Resource Book for African American Genealogy, and it was written by Dr. James M. Rose and Dr. Alice I. Colts. And it's basically all of the research principles that are available, how to methodically do this, and it gives you information for each of the 50 states on locating information, as well as Canada and the West Indies. So let me go back into here. This is actually very fascinating. If I put in here Isaac Miller, Pennsylvania, let's see if there's anything that comes up. And what's coming up is the actual list from the book. and it tells you how many items in there may or may not match. And down here at Pennsylvania, there are 32 items. So I'm going to give it a click on Pennsylvania, and it's going to show in just a minute or two. Oh, it didn't show. Well, sometimes it doesn't work quite the way you expect it to. So let me try this. Let me try the 32. Nope, for some reason it's not populating that list. But normally you would be able to click in here and open the particular area that you're looking at, and it will provide for you the information that you're looking for. Let me go back up here to the top of the page. If I go into community, this is where Afrogenesis is as well. So I hope I've given you some information about how to use African American Heritage, and I hope that everything that you've seen today will work for you. Before you go, I've got a couple of other bits of information, so if you'll hold on one more second, I am going to switch back over here to something, and let me go one more slide up from here. I'm going to go on ahead and say thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your coming and listening. There are 2 additional programs to this series. The first one is Strengthening Roots, and that one's from Heritage Quest Online, which is a little bit different from African American Heritage. And it has a broader scope and it has more information on it. And then the last one will be Growing Branches and Leaves, Ancestry Library Edition. And for those of you who are already on Ancestry.com, it's the same basic information, only less of it. Ancestry Library Edition trims away some things that you won't be able to do if you use Ancestry.com. It's even more information, and it's a little bit different from Heritage Quest Online as well. So if you would like to join us for either one of those classes, please feel free to do so. You can check the library's website and the YouTube page for any additional information or to view these little classes online. And our website is kershawcountylibrary.org. Please feel free to take a dip in and see what things that you can find. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great day.